Welcome, everyone, to the Inclusion Podcast. I'm Dr. Julie Costin.
And I'm Dr. Christy Preddy-Franzak. We're so glad you're here as we explore all things inclusion.
So whether you're a school leader, an educator, a parent, or simply passionate about inclusion, this podcast is for you.
In each episode, we go beyond the usual conversations, diving into what truly makes inclusive education work.
Together, let's make a difference, one conversation at a time. Here we go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Inclusion Podcast. This is episode 62, and it's about stopping challenging behavior before it even starts.
Okay, but Julie, I know we're going to set the stage a little bit more, but sometimes I have trouble when everything's always about prevention, when most behaviors that challenge us happen in the blink of an eye, or a kid goes from 0 to 60. So I'm going to keep my skepticism to the side, but I'm curious how we're going to talk about prevention when my heart is heavy with, 0 to 60.
Yeah, the in the moment stuff.
Yeah.
And so here's the bad news. The bad news is the more time and energy you spend on prevention, the less likely you are to have those kinds of behaviors. And so it seems counterintuitive, Christy, because yes, on your heart is going to be those moments. What if they do this? What if they do this? Or they did this and I wasn't expecting it. It feels very unexpected. But if you spend 80% of your energy on the proactive stuff, you're going to have fewer and fewer of those instances, and your life is actually going to be a lot easier in the classroom.
And when you just said that, Julie, it made me think, if we're always saying to folks, you can't teach during the storm.
Yeah.
Right. When a kid's dysregulated, they can't learn, they can't remember, they can't recall that stuff.
Yeah.
Even if it's for a split second or a minute.
Yeah.
Conversely, we're also, or simultaneously, I guess, we're also saying teach self-regulation. So what you just did was you clarified in my mind that these prevention or proactive tweaks or techniques are actually teaching self-regulation and coping strategies 80% of the time. And then 20% of the time I'm spending getting kids back into a ready state. So it's not just like prevention, but when you said proactive, I felt like, oh, I'm actually teaching self-regulation skills by doing these things, right?
Yeah. Some of the tweaks that we're going to share with you today are proactive in the way that you create the environment for fewer and fewer behaviors to occur. And some of them are actually about teaching self-regulation or teaching how to help kids to co-regulate, essentially. And so those are different, but they're all about reducing the amount of minutes you're going to spend in the storm. It's going to reduce the number of times that kids really, really struggle.
And I could hear you right then, Julie. So we can just say it out loud, because you are hesitant to say teach self-regulation because people are thinking that means the kid's going to be able to regulate on their own, especially anyone that's younger than 25 years old, which are all of our students. So I could see it. You guys can't see Julie, but I can see her. And she's like, I want to talk about co-regulation, not self-regulation, because I know that's what kids need. So just folks, whenever Julie and I say self-regulation, we mean the ability to manage energy and tension, that ability to stay in homeostasis, and that we recognize that requires co-regulation and these tweaks that we're going to talk about today. And you can get all 16 of the tweaks. We're not going to cover all 16 at inclusiveschooling.com/download 62. Today's episode will give you 16 of these preventative and proactive tweaks.
Yeah. And so if you're wondering, well, what are the kind of tweaks that they're going to talk about? They're really kind of ranging from predictable routines to sensory-friendly spaces to helping everybody learn and understand how to better self-regulate. And so all those kinds of things will be wrapped up in the 16. And we've got to remember, the more time and energy we spend here, the less time and energy we spend really stressed by behavior.
So which one do you want to start with, Julie? What tweak is on your mind today?
Okay, let me look. So what I would like to start with is predictability.
Okay. That's a fun one.
Yeah. And it's really about a couple of things. when we say predictability, I think a lot of people move to this idea of, oh, yeah, kids with autism need a visual schedule, and we've got to stay super predictable for those kind of neurodivergent humans. Wait, stop. True. We need to be predictable for lots of kids who are neurodivergent. It helps. And predictability helps for every single student in your class. So whether they're 12th grader, an 8th grader, or 3 years old, the more you can explain what's coming, take them. It's kind of like I love to write, right? So I love an advanced organizer. I love when I'm writing and I got this paragraph that says, hey, this is what you're about to read. And I also love at the end when I say, this is what you read, right? These are the big ideas. Same concept, except you're doing that live and in person and in the classroom to say, here's what's coming. Here's what's different or unexpected. And then let me support you through those transitions because they're harder on the human brain and nervous system than you might think.
So, Julie, help me out, even just from your perspective, with ADHD as a superpower. So I was having a conversation the other day with my friend Debbie about how people like to do things that they've done before.
Mm.
And you don't tend to like to do things on repeat. So let me set it up a little bit. So we have a friend that has done the Appalachian Trail before, and he's wants to do it again. And Debbie's like, why would you want to do it again? And in my mind, I love predictability, as you well know. I do not like anything unexpected. I'm thinking because he knows what to expect. He knows what it's going to feel like, look like, where he's going to stay, when he's going to get tired, like, because he's done the trail before. And she's thinking, how boring. Like, there are 8 million other trails in the world. Go do them. So I'm curious what you're thinking about as we were talking about even students who are neurodivergent or students with autism, this idea of like predictability, but also how necessary novelty is. So help me out here. Like, do you go on the trail again or not?
So I would say I'm allergic to repeat. I'm nearly allergic to doing the same thing over and over and over again. And what we mean by predictability is setting up the agenda or the day to be clear with what is to come, but fill that schedule with novel things. So it doesn't mean, hey, every day is going to look the same thing. You know, we're going to read chapter 2 on repeat all day long, you know, all the year long. Now, you know, some people like Christy would be like, do you know the nuance?
Like, God,
you know, the nuance I could pull from chapter 2. I could have such a deep and but instead it's like, we're still doing novel things, but the framework stays predictable. And anytime there's disruption, it's very clearly explained and that you expect disruption to feel hard to all people. Christy, even when we teach adult learners, I think it's so useful when we talk through the agenda, when we repeat back to the agenda, when we say, we just learned this and we're going to move to this, all their little brains, it helps them get back into their prefrontal cortex. And so the more you can act as if you are a concierge, bringing people through this land of learning and supporting them all the way through, they're going to not be stressed about the one thing called, what are we going to do? How long is it going to take? When is it going to be over? When are the bad parts coming? When are the good parts coming? Instead, their little minds are calm and they're ready because they know what to expect.
I'm going to piggyback on that because, Julie, we said we were going to, you know, the handout for this episode has 16 and we just took like 8 minutes to talk about one of them, which is fine because I think this is what you and I try to tell people all the time. We say art and science or nuance, but you can take something like predictability. And we really do, as educators, need to sit down and talk about what assumptions are we making about our own nervous system driving the predictability. Like, my classroom might get too rigid because I like that level. And now I've bored you to death. So I have to take those different perspectives as well as understand, oh, the framework stayed the same. There can still be comfort, but we can have novelty for those who need more, you know, excitement or stimulation or change or challenge. So I think on top of that, one of our other tweaks in the download, which is at inclusiveschooling.com/download 62, is that notion of pre-correction. and redirection. Because I think sometimes when we tell people, you know, it's all up front, they might do it like as they're saying, here are the stations to pick from, or here are the centers that are opening, or here's the lesson we're going to do. Kind of like in an old high school preschool thing, but we would do plan, do, review.
Yeah.
So you plan what you're going to do, you do it, and then you review what you've done. But what about the whole time while you're doing? Like sometimes that's where the behavior starts, is once we've gotten settled in, there's some tricky moment. There's some sort of challenge or issue or social interaction, and we need to sort of anticipate that escalation or that tricky moment and be ready to redirect or once again pre-correct.
Well, Christy, I don't know if I'm taking this in the way that you were thinking, but I want to add that whenever I'm in the moment and I'm realizing, oop, this isn't working for somebody, even though I laid out all the centers, even though I explained all the choices, I go, ooh, I wonder if there's a place to add another choice. That's kind of the question I ask myself. And so I take a look at, you said it might be a social interaction kind of thing, but right then and there, I might say, you know what? It's okay to work by yourself if that feels more comfortable to your nervous system today. And all of a sudden, you're just building in a quick choice that's going to eliminate kind of in the moment what's happening for some kids.
And that's a perfect reminder that this particular handout of 16 has embedded in it hyperlinks to other handouts because, you know, it's our love language. So you're right. The 101 ways to offer choice is embedded into this download for episode 62. And I feel like access points and offering choice are such beautiful things to do in the moment. Maybe we should also link to the zigzag in the show notes, but maybe just on this theme for a minute, like, fine, I know that these are like proactive and preventative tweaks and I planned for it, but what to do if things start to escalate in the moment, either, and when we say escalate, it could be like lack of motivation escalates, resistance, refusal, right? It doesn't have to just be, oh, now kids
yelling,
smacking and yelling at each other. Okay. Do you want to pick one more, Julie?
I do, because it's probably my favorite. Motivate with purposeful, engaging tasks. So I don't know how many times Christy and I have been invited to school systems to come in and look at this kid who has the most challenging behavior on earth. And we go, and then we look at the task this poor child is expected to be doing.
And look at the IEP, because it's like required that they do that task. But go ahead. Give us some ideas of some tasks we've seen.
Oh, well, I've seen this one poor kid who had to write his name and address 20 times before he could do anything else. So it was fine motor practice. It was also they called it a life skill. And he had to do it 20 times. On the sixth time, he flopped to the floor and rolled around, right? I would have punched someone on the second time. I don't like to do anything on repeat. And I don't like to do anything without a purpose. Like, I will write my address if it will get somebody a letter, but that's it, right? And so we've got to rethink, especially in those awful self-contained classrooms, I'll just say it, where we're doing these social skills, we're doing all these skills on repeat, and then we're surprised by the behavior. So all that to be said, of course, our number one solution would be to include those kids in general education. Second piece would be, let's look at purposeful, engaging, interesting, exciting tasks that will help them. It will prevent boredom. It will prevent anger. It will prevent all the kinds of things that we're going to result in a behavior. So kids thrive with real world relevant tasks. And when it looks like busy work, you're going to get behavior that looks like busy work.
And I think, Julie, it could, definitely, because the one that came to my mind was also in a life skills room when they were teaching the 5 senses, for the 12th year in a row. But I was also thinking about the classroom. I think it might have been a history classroom that we were in. And there were like maybe 5 or 6 of the students who English wasn't their first language, and none of the materials had been translated. And they were talking about things that were happening globally, but not making it relevant to what was pressing for those students currently. So like the access points were just like
missing
entirely, which it didn't mean the students weren't interested in global affairs. It didn't mean students weren't motivated to learn about facts and figures. It's just they couldn't even access the content.
That's right. That's right. So we have to look at a couple things. What are we asking students to do? How do we make it much more motivating, much more relevant? And as Christy's saying, add access points to make sure every human has a way in and every human has a connection to the actual content, as opposed to, I have to cover this, whether it's relevant to you or not, doesn't really relate to my task.
Yeah. And I think like to wind that thought down, I cannot take another goal that says a kid will engage in an unpreferred task.
Why?
I mean, Julie.
I mean, I'm happy to
want to cause. Okay. Like I always tell people when they're working on toileting skills with kids, you have very little control over the frequency. So when you write an IEP goal, you can't say that the kid will toilet successfully 4 times a day because you can't predict they have to go to the toilet 4 times a day. Okay. Unless you're going to give them a lot of juice at snack.
Yeah. Or unless you're menopausal and you know what I mean? And then you have to pee that many times in the night.
Correct. And then it's like 4 successful out of the number of times you went today isn't going to be a success, right?
Correct.
So it's like you're measuring the wrong thing. And in this case, you're actually causing the bad, challenging, disruptive, unproductive behavior because you're making humans do things that they're not only maybe unmotivated by or don't see the relevance or don't feel awfully connected to, but you're actually doing something known to agitate and trigger them. So,
right. And I like the one way I like to think about it is asking adult humans who are listening today, do you have a task that's unpreferred? And all of us kind of laugh to say,
go clean the toilet or something.
Yeah, right.
I don't know anybody that likes that, but maybe somebody does.
Sure. But the point is, you have an unpreferred task in mind, or you have multiple unpreferred tasks. And the more you practice it, it doesn't make you more excited about doing the task. Yeah. What we want to do is take unpreferred tasks and make them more preferred so that kids can get through it, and especially double checking that the task itself is relevant to what's expected in the general education content curriculum with peers.
All right, because I'm going to wrap this one up with us, Julie, because I just feel myself wanting to go into a whole thing about, but what will the kid learn if I let them do only things they want? So that will be another podcast, friends. So Julie, let's wrap up. Yep. First of all, that they can get today's download at inclusiveschooling.com/download62. And what did they get out of this episode or this handout?
So again, we were talking about stopping challenging behavior before it starts, and the bulk of the strategies are going to be on that handout. But remember, prevention doesn't mean perfection. It's about setting up spaces where kids feel safe and capable and connected from the start. So we also have in Behavior 360 a lot more information on this. So if this is something that you're interested in, you might want to look up Behavior 360, or we'll even link it in the show notes, because it's packed with even more real world tools and videos to help you strengthen what you're already doing and get your classroom ready for all learners all the time. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe and catch up on past episodes where we share valuable insights, straight talk, and practical steps to challenge outdated special education practices. You can find every episode with the show notes at inclusiveschooling.com/inclusion-podcast to build more inclusive schools together.